Alder not current Alder seats, so it doesn't really affect whom may be nominated to fill the vacancy. They fill the current districts, so it doesn't. We don't need to wait for that. That'll be next election. And one of the ideas before was to not give an unfair advantage to someone who may want to run. So if they get moved in districts, that would kind of negate them ever having an advantage anyway. So I don't think that needs to be part of the equation of waiting. I think the main thing with waiting is to make sure that it's transparent and the council isn't only nominating friends and acquaintances, so that any citizen can put forward a letter of interest, and then we can all decide after that. One thing that I was thinking is, since we do have Paul Piper with us until the 19th, if we did wait, so we don't really need to appoint people then. The big reason that we need to appoint people so quickly is if we are down 2 council people, one person being out, we wouldn't, if one person got sick or couldn't attend, we wouldn't have a quorum and we couldn't move business forward. But we will have that until the 19th. So I think we could easily wait, take letters of interest, and then decide on the next meeting.
Alder Reed.
All right, there it is. I would feel more comfortable waiting until the next meeting to have time to put out short notice for more interested candidates. I'm assuming the ones that are here tonight will still be available. It just feels a little bit more fair, especially since we have half of the interested party from previous council and half are new, and we have no idea, what kind of experience they might bring. So having the short letter, quick bio would be very helpful.
Thank you, Alder Reed. Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in? I think actually all the alders have had an opportunity to talk about how to proceed tonight. So I am looking for a motion that would indicate how you would like to see things move forward.
Alder Gray would move that we put a notice out for any citizen in District 2 or 3 to submit a letter of interest no later than October 14th, so that council can have them available next. And then make a decision on the 19th.
Alder Motive would second that.
So it has been moved and seconded that we open the pool of interested candidates for the 2 open seats by asking anyone in District 2 or 3 who is interested to send a letter of interest to City Clerk Pat Gable by October 14th. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? And I do want to thank the people who attended tonight, who were approached by alders and were able to attend our meeting. And I hope that if you continue to be interested, you will send a letter to Clerk Pat Gable, City Clerk Pat Gable, by October 14th, letting us know why it is that you'd like to serve on City Council and perhaps any pertinent experience that you may have had. So thank you very much. Anyone? Now we're going to move on to item number 2 on the agenda tonight, which is to consider and take action on Resolution 2021, the street name change for Nina Drive. This is something we talked about at our last meeting, we talked about how it would be less confusing for EMS and police and fire, if we change the name for this street that's kind of a circular drive. And if anyone needs any further information about this item, we did discuss it last time. It is in your packet. Matt Schreiber is here. If anyone has any questions about the name change. So maybe you could just raise your hand if you would like Matt to chime in. Okay, it looks like everybody's pretty clear on what we're doing here. The council had approved 2 survey maps, which created 6 new single-family lots for development on Nina Drive. The first portion was built, and it was several addresses were added. And the concern that staff had was that the remaining portion of this street has not been completed, and EMS, fire, and police response time may be impacted by having 2 separate Nina drives that do not connect. So the solution is to rename the street where the new homes will be built to Nina Drive West. So that is what we are voting on. And I am looking for a motion.
Read motions to change the name of Nina Drive to West Nina Drive from the highlighted area of the survey map presented.
I think it's actually, they want to change it to Nina Drive West. I don't know, do we need to be that specific?
West Nina Drive, sorry, West Nina Drive or Nina Drive West?
I think it, yeah, we have a Nina Drive. I recommended we change it to Trina Drive, but people want that's more. So we have a Nina Drive, and the change would be Nina Drive West. So that would be, I guess, what we are voting on.
I will amend my motion to change the segment to Nina Drive West.
I will second that.
Great, thank you so much. So it has been moved and seconded that we change the name from Nina Drive to Nina Drive West as described in the agenda item. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, moving on. Item number 3 on tonight's agenda is consider and take action on agreement for payment of TIF funds at 128 West James Street. This is TIF 6. And again, this is something we talked about at our last meeting. This involves the workshop, which is just a wonderful business in Columbus. And Matt had filled us in, and we've got pictures in our packet of what the Wideners would like to do with this. And again, Matt is here if anyone has any questions about what's going on with this agenda item. And if you do have questions about this item, can you raise your hand? Okay, I don't see anybody with a hand up. So what we are looking for is a motion to approve the TIF 6 request at 128 West James Street. Is that correct? Or
to approve the agreement for payment of TIF funds.
okay, to approve, we're looking for a motion to approve the payment of TIF funds for 128 West James Street. This is TIF 6. And if go ahead.
Alder Albright can make a motion to approve the TIF 6 district funds at the maximum amount of $2,713.71.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
Alder Motive will make a second.
Okay, thank you so much. So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the TIF 6 request for the funds indicated. And is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, and I think, we do a roll call for this? Okay, we will do a roll call for this item. Gray?
Aye.
Moda? Piperone?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Motion carries. Great, thank you very much, everyone. We're moving on now to item number 4, which is consider and take action on Resolution 2121. It is Fire Prevention Week. And we have a resolution. I'll read you part of it that we need to vote on and approve. That the City of Columbus is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Columbus. Fire is a serious public safety concern, and we, the citizens of Columbus, understand that the Columbus Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protective education, and that Columbus residents are responsive to public education measures to are better able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And therefore, we do proclaim October 3rd through the 9th, 2021, as Fire Prevention Week throughout this city. And I urge all the people of Columbus to learn the sounds of fire safety for Fire Prevention Week 2021, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Columbus Fire Department. And I hope everyone has a smoke detector in their house. This is a very serious issue, and I am looking for a motion to pass this resolution. Alder Piperone, you have your hand raised.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but can you explain what those random sounds are that we're hearing?
I think it might be
Like an alarm or a doorbell?
Paul, I don't know. It sounds like people going by honking their horns. It might be a full moon tonight, I'm not sure. So, do you have any questions about the resolution?
No, I'm sorry, no.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion regarding this resolution.
Alder Gray moves to approve Resolution 2121, Fire Prevention Week.
Reed seconds.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 2121, Fire Prevention Week. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Great. And now we're going on to Resolution 2221. It's Public Power Week, which is October 4th through the 10th. And this is a resolution recognizing Public Power Week and how Columbus Water and Light makes our lives powerful all year. And I won't read the whole thing to you, but therefore let it be resolved that Columbus Water and Light will continue to work to bring lower cost, safe, reliable electricity to community homes and businesses, just as it has since 1898, the year when the utility began to serve all the citizens of Columbus. And be it resolved that the week of October 3rd through 9, 2021, be designated Public Power Week in order to honor Columbus Water and Light for its contributions to the community and to make its consumer, owners, policymakers, and employees more aware of Columbus Water and Light's overall contribution to their well-being and how it makes their lives powerful. So we are joining, the end of the resolution says, be it further resolved that our community joins hands with more than 2,000 other public power systems in the United States in the celebration of public power recognition that water and light is good for consumers, business, the community, and the nation. So that's the resolution, and I am looking for a motion.
Alder Motif will make a motion to pass Resolution 2221, Public Power Week, October 4th through 10th.
Alder
I will
Albright
second
can
that.
second that.
So it has been moved and seconded that we pass resolution 2221. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We have passed that resolution. The next item on our agenda is to consider and take action on claims in the amount of $300,871.30. So I am looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the payments of claims in the amount read.
Great, second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the monthly claims through September 28, 2021 in the amount read. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, I guess we do a roll call. Thank you. Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Piperone,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries. Great, that's the last item on our agenda. So I am looking for a motion.
Reports.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped ahead. Yes, the last item on our agenda is the reports from the city administrator and from myself. So Kyle, would you like to go ahead?
Sure, thank you very much. Just a few quick items. One is kind of the last 2 weeks has been a variety of budget-related activities, and so that's taken up quite a bit of time, even making some changes all the way down to yesterday and today. But I think we'll talk about it a little later, but I think we have a good base to work with right now. And then finally, we did finish the interview process for the treasurer position, and we did make an offer yesterday to an interested candidate. And I'm very happy to announce that today, Brandon Bledsoe accepted our offer, and he will start October 25th full-time. He may be stopping in a little bit in advance, getting kind of the lay of the land and getting up to speed. But he does have experience as a clerk treasurer in Partyville, and also currently he's serving in the village of Waukesha as an interim clerk treasurer. So we're excited to have him come on board and kind of fill that position for the long term.
Great, thank you so much. I participated in the Oktoberfest at the Pavilion last weekend as a member of the Friends of the Library. It was a really great time. And if you missed it this year, I would highly suggest you go next year. There were various local authors and artists. And it was, I had a lot of fun shopping and talking with the artists and the authors. Coming up in October, it's Halloween month, and this year activities are going to include a safe Halloween on October 31st, which I believe is a Sunday this year, from 4 to 7. This is sponsored by the Columbus Chamber and by the Downtown Development Organization. There's another event going on Halloween, which I thought seemed kind of interesting. It's the Columbus Historical Society, which also runs the museum downtown, is sponsoring another event at Hillside Cemetery. It's called Shadows on the Hillside. It takes a tour through the cemetery with shadows of some important historic founders and notables sharing their stories by their tombstones. A couple of Columbus residents who have been here for quite some time and are very interested in Columbus history are John and Darlene Marks, and they're going to be portraying Henry and Helen Whitney. And this does happen at 9 in the morning, so it's not going to be too scary. And then you'll have plenty of time to go out and trick or treat. They are selling tickets to this event, and they are $8 per person or $14 for a couple, and the proceeds do go to support the historical museum. We have some events in November that are going to be a lot of fun. Small Business Saturday, which is right after Thanksgiving, is going to include the wine walk and the stop, shop, and sip, when the emphasis is on our local businesses. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, we are going to be hosting the holiday train in December, or the holiday train stop in December. We have not yet heard when they are planning to come to Columbus, but we will keep you updated on that as we learn more about what's going to be happening. So that's it for me. And now, I believe, we can adjourn. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn. Alder Piper will make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Great seconds.
great. So all those in favor, oops. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nobody's opposed, right? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Well, our first meeting went pretty quick, so I think we're just gonna head right into the next one. I have currently 7:02 p.m. Tuesday, October 5th, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole. And with that, if Pat, if you could take roll call for us, please.
All right,
Here.
Arnold, here. Gray,
Present?
Motive,
Present.
Piperon,
Here.
Reed,
Here.
all present.
And this meeting was properly noticed. So next up is to approve the agenda.
Alder Moda will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Piper will second that.
Perfect. I have a motion from Motive and a second from Piperon to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Perfect. And moving right along, we did not have anyone signed up for citizen comments. And as a reminder, like the Mayor mentioned earlier, now that we are virtual, if you want to sign up for citizen comments, please do so by contacting the city clerk, Pat Guggle, by noon on the day of the meeting. So next up, we have some minutes and things in the packet from the CHLPC, the CWL, the PFC, and Parks and Rec. Does anybody have any comments or concerns on any of those? Seeing none, moving right along. So item number 6 on the agenda tonight is review and discuss the Second Ward Creek project options, costs, and borrowing scenarios. I think Kyle is going to kind of start us off on that one. I believe Jason is still here in Zoom land if we have questions.
Correct. So after the last meeting, we continued to look at the Second Ward Creek stormwater projects and some of the options to take care of the issues that have been plaguing the area for a number of years. There were a variety of different options between keeping certain culverts in with box culverts or removing them into more of an open ditch scenario, and also incorporating pedestrian bridges and things like that. So what you can see in your memo is the 6 options or 6 kind of cost components. 1 through 5 are really the projects, and then number 6 is the pedestrian bridge, which may only be needed in option 1 or 2 and could potentially be incorporated upfront or later on. Then based on that, Ellers, our financial advisor, ran some scenarios depending on the approximate project cost with 6 scenarios or 5 scenarios. They didn't fully evaluate each option down to the individual dollar level. Instead, we went with broad borrowing levels of $300,000, $800,000, and 1.3 million, and that roughly corresponds within the range of these projects. Essentially, on the lowest end, the debt service on a $300,000 project ends up being about $35,000 annually. And then kind of the mid-range of the 800,000 going with a 10-year note would be in the $93,000 debt service annually. And once you go to the $1.3 million project, then you switch from the 10-year notes to the 20-year bonds. And that annual cost would be $85,000 a year, which is less than the middle project, but it's for a longer period of time. So you end up paying more. These are general obligation debt estimates. And if we did pursue a stormwater utility, we could also consider going with the revenue bonds, which have a higher cost because they're not as secure. But we didn't go to that level for this right now because the decision on that hasn't been made yet. So there's a variety of different options, a variety of different borrowing scenarios that could be applied to any of the different project options. And so I think that is kind of the crux of the initial request of the council, was to understand the options and some of the borrowing costs. Outside of that, I think with some questions that are included in here that we went back and forth with the city engineer regarding some of the concerns that have been brought up over time about making these changes upstream and what that does downstream. And so there were some comments and questions included in the packet. And I don't know if there's more questions from the council now, but Jason would be able to maybe talk through any of his highlights or concerns that we've been talking about for a while about what that might mean further downstream once we do the upstream project.
Thank you, Kyle. Does anyone on council have a question now, or did you want any more information from Jason, a specific question for Jason? Trina, looks like.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really helpful having the additional information and seeing different scenarios laid out. I mean, the first thing I, noticed about the options was that the guesstimate is that the pedestrian bridge would cost as much as a box culvert. They're both being, estimated for $75,000. When I look at the price difference between no box culverts and one box culvert. I guess my question is, how are these culverts being priced and how is the dredging being estimated? When I was looking at the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, a box culvert was listed as being priced at like $711 to $743, like per linear foot. So wondering how big is this and trying to make sure we're getting our box culverts worth.
Thank you, Trina. Did you get her question, Jason? Could you maybe?
Yeah, so we are looking at pricing that we have for similar projects that we've done in the past when we bid this out. That's not saying that unit pricing that the DOT is listing is inaccurate, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. In this particular case, the one thing that we factored into the box culvert price, and we have a very detailed itemized list of bid items associated with this project that we estimated. One of the items in there is dewatering. We actually have to bypass pump the flow of this creek. And so there's a fair amount of cost associated with that. So when you just look at comparing apples to apples from the DOT unit prices, they're probably not factoring in this dewatering cost. Now we could lower the price of our box culverts, but we still have to dewater to bypass pump the flow regardless of the work we're doing associated with this. So when we package this up, we have a history of packaging the dewatering or the bypass pumping with the box culverts. So we know what those unit prices typically are. So that's what we applied to this scenario. So I don't disagree that there probably are cheaper unit prices out there, but it may not be the same item or the same type of work that we estimated for that item in our cost. We did verify this with a independent contractor and with the county. and asked them to include that into their pricing when they did price the box culverts, and they both came in very similar in price and value for that. I will add your question about the pedestrian bridge. It's a more of a substantial steel bridge. It spans, I did one of these bridges a few years back. It spans, the one that's priced here, it's $75,000, spans about 30 some feet. That would probably be the width of the channel at the top at this location. And this would be pretty substantial, 8 feet wide. It would be heavy wood decking planks. It would be on concrete abutments with a path leading up to it. We had looked at, cheaper bridges. We get by with a simple wooden structure. And one of the concerns from Public Works was, if we get a high water event, isn't the water just going to pick that up and wash it away or damage it or something? So they wanted to ensure that we built something more substantial for a pedestrian bridge, where we could raise it up high enough that the floodwaters wouldn't impact it, and it was substantial enough to withstand any type of issue that would arise for the crossing. So it is a little bit more expensive, but I did have some pictures and some additional information from the bridge that I had spec'd and constructed. So that was the one that we kind of decided to go with, to make sure that if we're going to put something in, it's going to last and it's going to survive and be high enough and raised above the water levels to prevent that. So that's where that cost came from.
Thank you. Yeah, the pedestrian bridges definitely run the gambit for cost, like everything between like $100 per square foot and $2,000 per square foot. It's just wild. I mean, for obviously very, very different structures, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jason and Trina. Sarah?
Thank you. I am very much in support of making sure we find a way to control the stormwaters, in particular in the second ward. However, after reading the questions and comments, I am not convinced that we are not creating problems for other residents within the city. And I'm questioning if we are doing this in potentially the right order. Do we need to go do the elevation study for James Street before we approve anything? I personally cannot approve this project knowing that we are creating issues for other residents in our city. And the way this is laid out, we are. And my question would be, how do we avoid creating issues for other residents in the city? Do we need to dredge the mill pond or put in culverts there? Do we need to start somewhere else? Or is it inevitable that there will always be problems?
Thank you very much, Sarah. I think that's a question that a lot of us are wondering about, and I know before going into this, I really wanted to make sure we wouldn't create problems elsewhere. Jason, could you perhaps give us enlighten us on that a little bit more?
Yeah, certainly. And I've said this all along, that there's always a risk, regardless of what improvements we do. We just have a waterway that flows through the middle of town in close proximity to structures. So, I could sit here and I could tell you that, this will solve a lot of problems or reduce the risk, but there's always the risk there. But one of the things that we did when we look back at these questions that were asked since last time is we look back more specifically at the situation at James Street. We certainly can find some additional elevations at those structures down there to see if this impacts. We do, and I don't know if the information got in here, but I did send over some photos of the 2020 flooding on James Street to show that the elevations were at a certain level and those structures weren't impacted. We suspect that the modeling is showing us that we're going to be at a similar type of elevation, but we would certainly want to make sure that we verify those first floor elevations. In the event that we had a larger storm event, regardless whether we do anything on the creek or not, there could certainly be impact to those structures regardless. So I think it's a situation that everybody just has to understand that, it's very close to flooding these structures downstream. And if there is any larger rain event than we have historically seen, those could be damaged. But, you know, I think we need to go into it with enough information to make a good decision. I can't 100% sit here and say, I know exactly what that water is going to do, and it's going to stop 1 inch below, you know, going and, you know, influencing these houses. So, you know, it is something that we certainly can go out and survey these elevations, just to be sure that we know exactly where those first floor elevations sit, and, you know, what the elevation of the ground is adjacent to the house, to make sure that our modeling is, you know, giving us the information that we have. And if we have that survey information, I think that's the best we can do to make an educated decision. And, you know, it shouldn't take us long to shoot in some grades, but we can certainly do that and make sure. If you looked at one of my answers, the level of influence of flooding doesn't extend very far upstream of the box culvert. It's only about 160 feet plus or minus. So, you know, it's really just the houses on James Street adjacent to the creek that have the highest potential for a change in water surface elevation. As you go upstream, obviously the grade rises or the gradient changes. And for those structures upstream, there's still a risk, but our model is showing us that we're not increasing the risk for those structures. So, you know, again, I think there is something we can do to help answer that question for everyone.
I would like to recommend that the council approves or promotes that we do further study. I'm not comfortable if it's only 2 houses, if it's only 160 feet. It's not a just. We're creating problems for someone else, and I think we need to do more research on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jason, so what would the fix be if the elevation, if we are creating an issue for those homes on James Street, what's the fix for that?
Well, we've talked about a couple things at a staff level, particularly trying to find a way to bypass some of the water, whether that happens upstream at a current location. We already have a storm sewer that maybe we could bypass some of the water across Waterloo Street and down across the golf course. We've also talked about an opportunity to bypass some water out of the system to reduce flows up at Avalon Park. I know we've talked to the golf course owners just preliminarily, even last year after the flooding, just to entertain the idea of would they be supportive if we found a way to convey water across their property, and they certainly seemed open to it at the time. We haven't had that conversation in quite a while, but I think particularly getting water out of the system so it's not flowing down Second Ward Creek is the likely solution to making sure that, you know, we're not increasing the water surface elevation or impacting any downstream properties in the event that there is concern of that. The other option would be to, I think Sarah's right. I mean, I think certainly there is an option of dredging the mill pond. My concern is that the dam does hold water back, and this water is kind of crashing into the mill pond level. So really, once it gets down there, it's got nowhere to go, and that's acting as a tailwater condition, if that makes sense. So even if we increase the culvert on James Street, I'm not entirely sure that we could probably increase flow through that culvert to fix the hydraulic problem that we're seeing if we're introducing more water. But I still believe that, you know, we do have the scenario of if the Crawfish River is at a high elevation already, it's just hard to move water there because it's got no place to go.
So are you saying that, so basically, even if we can increase the water going through the culvert on James Street to kind of alleviate the increased flow, it's getting to the mill pond would still potentially be an issue in increased flooding?
Yeah, there's really no storage capacity there. Ideally, you know, if the mill pond was at a lower level or the water surface downstream was at a lower level, it would allow the water to drain out of the Second Ward Creek faster. My only fear is that, you know, it's water is such a dynamic system that no two storms are the same, and the incidences don't operate very similarly. But what we do know is that, you know, the dam does hold back a certain level of water. Now, we've tried to draw the dam down preceding storms when we know they're forecasted to help with that scenario. And there is some benefit that I believe that we've seen. Now, others may argue differently, but that really does kind of pose the issue of, how do we get the water out into the Crawfish River and down through the city faster so it can drain out of Second Ward Creek. if you can imagine, it's almost damming up or impeding the water from getting through the system. And so it's really difficult to say, what would solve the problem, other than either bypassing water. I mean, that's kind of a given. We know if we take water out of the system and we have less flowing there, that we'll see a result. But if it's just dredging or trying to lower the dam or trying to bypass water around the dam, I'm just concerned that the tailwater condition is not going to allow us to move that water much faster than it currently goes now.
Thank you. Trina? Go ahead, Trina.
All right. Wow, quite the happening over there. Goodness. So, I mean, I feel that we're going to have flooding issues on some level, no matter what we do. All we can do is lessen it a bit. My question is wondering if dredging should start downstream closer to the river, even though the main problem now is upstream, just to have go back to start by the river and then just release and release and release, so that we're not creating a bubble.
Thank you, Trina. Yeah, I think that was always one of my thoughts too. Jason, would that need to include dredging the mill pond and then going back?
Well, we talked about that right now. So the static water level of the mill pond is above any of the sediments. So we don't get water storage below the current water surface. So dredging it out really does not gain you any capacity in allowing that flow to move through the system. So I don't know that dredging the mill pond gains you much unless if you lower the water level in the mill pond or lower the river level in the mill pond. And there are some restrictions as to how the city can operate the dam per the DNR guidelines. We have to operate it between a certain water level. And so that really doesn't give us a whole lot of flexibility to say, I mean, if we can forecast an event and we're trying to lower it to mitigate flooding, that's one thing, but just to operate it at a naturally lower level would take DNR approval. So unless if we're able to lower that level, I feel like we wouldn't really gain anything by dredging the mill pond. Now, to go to Trina's point about the phasing or the dredging through the CBDG close program and the project we just kind of embarked on, that dredging of that lower section is part of that project, and that is planned for next year through the grant. So our hope would be that by cleaning out that channel, we would allow water to convey, at least have some more storage volume or storage area, because we're removing the sediment along the banks and making the channel wider through there. So there will be some benefit, and it's just from a storage volume standpoint through there. So our hope would be that we could certainly lower that water surface, but then we kind of have the scenario going on at James Street, which is kind of counteracting that. Even if we have the additional storage and can move the water quicker, now we're kind of running into the box culvert capacity issue under James Street. So there's really kind of a lot of factors that I think are at play here to you kind of, it's like whack-a-mole, right? You fix one situation and now something else pops up. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now with, we can dredge it and increase storage capacity on that lower end. But I still think we have this issue with conveying the water through James Street and, through the dam, if you will, in those high water events.
Okay, so we would still have the issue. So we need to figure out something to convey it through James Street and then also through the dam. Do we have options with the dam to convey more water? Is there something that can be done about that?
Well, right now there was some staff discussion about could we have a culvert or a facility that could bypass or be laid in parallel with the James Street culvert to increase the capacity of water that could move under James Street, and that could ultimately discharge below the dam. There is some merit to that. My main concern is that in these high water events, our tailwater elevation below the dam is almost equal to our headwater elevation above the dam. So we really don't gain any relief from that tailwater condition when we have those super high flows. So that I don't know is going to gain us much, even if we could increase that capacity under James Street. But I think it's certainly worth some more investigation to see if there is a solution that'll work in that scenario to help convey that water through that stretch. You know, it really kind of plays into, you know, how low can the water, you know, level be maintained in the river, and if it's low enough, is there some dredging that could support it? There could be some possibility there, but just how much I don't really know.
Thank you. I saw, Shelley, you had your hand up earlier. Did you still have a?
Actually, well, no, Trina kind of brought up my point. I'm definitely in favor of the dredging because I think environmentally that is a pretty sound solution, and expanding the capacity is great. But you basically asked my question about, you know, maybe do it in steps and do that lower part, then do the upper part, and then go to the culverts if necessary, is what I was thinking. And my question kind of got answered.
Thank you. Yeah, like Jason mentioned, we do have the CDBG grant, so that we were already intending on doing the lower portion. So that would almost certainly happen before anything higher it could ever happen. So I don't know. I'm still at a loss to if this is going to fix anything unless we do something about the water getting down the river through the dam. No matter what we dredge in the creek or do with box culverts, is it going to actually fix much of anything, or just keep passing the problem somewhere else until we figure out what to do with the water actually getting out of our system and down the river? But I think that's where we need to concentrate, is figure out what study we need, what we need to do, so we know what we need to do to get the water out of our system. And before we start increasing capacity anywhere in our system, I think we need to know how the water gets out of our system. Is there something you would recommend for that, Jason, like where we should start, or what study we may need to figure that out before we start dredging more of the creeks and removing culverts?
Yeah, I mean, this really boils down to two things in my mind. One is the dam causing an issue that if removed, it will help allow this water to drain out of the creek channel quicker? And that may go hand in hand with some dredging. So I think that's certainly something that I would recommend taking a look at. The other thing that I still think has some merit is there a way to take a percentage of the flow? So for example, if we go up to Avalon Park and we pipe it under Avalon Park into Kestrel Ridge, there's a large drainage channel that runs down through there. Is there a way to get it redirected? Now, I don't know if there is or not, and but I think there's some merit to looking at that. So let's just hypothetically say we could put a 48-inch culvert under Avalon Street, which can take 100 cubic feet per second. We knew that from the study we did in the park. If there's 500 cubic feet a second coming down through the creek by Avalon Park, and we can divert 20% of the flow, that 20% doesn't go down through Fireman's Park. It doesn't go to under, it doesn't ultimately go down and try to force its way through James Street. So that is an option that we've spent some time with staff discussing as well. Now, when the water got high enough in 2020, it naturally flowed overland that direction. I was physically there and watched it flow across Avalon down through Kestrel Ridge and divert itself out of the Second Ward Creek. I would think that if we could divert a percentage of flow 20% or greater, we could have a fairly sizable impact of the amount of water that's on the lower end of the Second Ward Creek. So I really think those two options do have some merit, looking at the dam impact and then looking at, is there a way we can feasibly divert water and make it work? So I think if we're going to look at this a little bit more in depth, other than just what's the impact of dredging or culvert removal, that's where I would start. I would start with those two premises and say, do either one of these hold merit? And is there a large value to it? If we take out the dam and dredge some of the mill pond, we might be able to say, maybe we can drop the water surface by a sizable amount. The issue, I think, would still be getting water through James Street, but we could put culvert or something to supplement what's there to help move water through there. Once it's through there, we know it'll release, we know it'll go. If it's able to move through the dam quicker or downstream quicker, we may be able to prove that maybe the water doesn't back up, because with no tailwater condition, the capacity of the culvert does function with some hydraulic pressure much better than it does with no tailwater condition. So there are definitely some things here, I think, that we can look at to help kind of answer that long-term solution. But I really like the idea of just moving the water out and diverting it out of the system rather than trying to figure a way to force more through the funnel that we have downstream.
Then, thank you, Jason. That makes a lot more sense to me. And I personally, that's in more of the direction I would like to go, is figure out how to get more water out of the system, whether it's at Avalon, whether potentially at Avalon and at James Street, and to see if maybe the dam really needs to be removed. It may just be keeping water elevation, the water table higher, and it might be a large factor in flooding in Columbus. So I think those are questions that I would like to see answered before we start doing anything, and just kind of, taking a culvert out here, dredging there, and spending millions of dollars on something that may or may not even ultimately fix our problems or do everything as much as we would like it to do long term. So I would like to make sure we start in the most logical place and get the most bang for our buck. Trina, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Jason, for bringing up the possibility of the dam removal. I'm wondering what would be our steps in requesting the DNR to do a fresh evaluation on how water levels might be affected and if they might give such permission.
Well, certainly it's your dam. So I think the decision kind of lies with the city. I know that this was brought up when the dam was repaired last time. I think that was kind of early on in my years here as the city engineer. The decision by the council was made to repair it because there was some underlying damage from some of the previous high water events. At that time, I do know that there was funding out there, grants available from the River Alliance and the DNR and other agencies that would help support removal. So as far as the options and costs, we can certainly look at that. I don't know exactly what approvals the DNR would have, but I know it was considered last time. And ultimately, I think the decision was made to repair it. But I think a fresh look and to refresh some of that information and see where funds are available now and what the DNR's position is and is there support out there to take a look at that structure. And then ultimately what it kind of impact that has removing it. We know what happened last time. We have documented evidence of, the static water levels in the creek or the river, both. We know where the channels would be. And so I think looking kind of back at that, we do have some knowledge of what the results are when the dam was drawn down and water was basically allowed to move freely through that structure. So that's where I would start. I would start with kind of talking to the DNR, looking at some options. We do know kind of some impacts of having it removed. And so we could certainly look at those again and refresh that and, see if that's a viable option. I do think, obviously, once the dam river is lowered, we know there's a lot of mud in front of the Second Ward Creek channel. That would go hand in hand with dredging some of that sediment to get that as more direct connection out to the original river channel of the crawfish. So there are some merits to dredging the mill pond and freeing up that flow once we lower that. I know that. So.
Thank you. That's definitely how I would like to move forward. I know you probably haven't looked into costs of something of that nature. What do you think it would cost the city to figure this out and do a study to get water out of bypass the system, maybe up by Avalon and looking at the dam?
Yeah, so with usually any of these options, we have to go out and shoot some grades to determine, where the water's going to go, what the grades are. Do we have enough cover to put a pipe in? For example, can we put a 48-inch pipe in, or do we need to put twin 24s in because of cover issues? So we just have to spend a little time really doing some rudimentary survey in my mind. I don't see this as a big issue. I just want to make sure that likewise, if we're bypassing water, we got to be cognizant of the downstream property owners and make sure that we're not causing a problem down there. So the lower homes on Kestrel Ridge, we're going to have to evaluate to make sure that we're not introducing any water backing up in the yards there. Once it crosses under 89, we're going to have to look at culvert sizes and capacities and see if we'll have to increase something there. And then ultimately it gets down into what I understand is a drain tile or an open structure behind the golf course driving range for Kestrel Ridge. And at that point it goes underground and then daylights into the crawfish way down below Cross River Road. We would probably want to look at that system to make sure that it's not collapsed, that it has capacity. Once we get the water on that side of 89, it has a much larger area to disperse. And if it does back up or flood over there, we know it's some agricultural property and some other things. We know that's floodplain already. So we'd want to just look and make sure we're not increasing or impacting, damaging crops or damaging other property down there. So I think there's just a little bit of a thought to looking at that option as a bypass, shooting some grades, considering those options. I do think that there's some merit to increase the storm sewer capacity that goes from Waterloo across the golf course to the river. That's down on River Road that crosses under in daylights. I think even if we could take increase a percentage of overflow water through that and above, maybe we can get a combined effort from 2 bypass locations. So we'd probably need to shoot some grades and stuff. So a lot of it's really survey. And then it's really just analyzing the data. So I don't really have a number yet. I'd have to look into that. But if we want to look at 2 bypass locations and look at some dam analysis and impacts from removal and where static water elevations historically were when the dam was drawn down, we could put something together as a proposal to see what kind of level of effort that would be.
Thank you. And what kind of time frame do you think we'd be looking at?
Certainly if we got authorized to do it in the next couple meetings, it'd probably take us a couple weeks to get field data in and analyze a few things and write a report. I mean, I would say, maybe a month. I think that's kind of what we did last time, is took a month from kind of go to when we could turn it around and bring that data back for the council for consideration.
Thank you. And do you think you'd be able to have an approximate cost of the surveying and things for us by next meeting?
Absolutely. I could pull something together if that's what you guys wanted and get it back to you.
Awesome. I appreciate it. So what is the will of the council? Did you want to move forward with any of the options in front of us? Or did you want to have Jason bring some more information on approximate cost for the studies of removing the dam and potential bypassing in a few areas? Sarah?
I'd like to give approval for the study and for cost. I don't think that we're ready to vote on or move forward anything that was proposed tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments, Trina?
I'm in agreement with Sarah. Although Ellers did a wonderful job letting us know the financial impact for years to come, I think we need to check out some more options.
Thank you. And I mean, these are still going to be pertinent for us to know in the future too. So it's still a good study that we've had done and good info from others. Thank you, Trina. Paul? Go ahead, Paul.
I'm in agreement with both Alder Reed and Alder Motive that I think we should, we're not going to solve any of this really soon, even if we do vote on any one of these options. So we should take a little bit more time and do as much research as we can to try to mitigate as best as we can. Because like Sarah said, or Alder Motive said, sorry, that even if there's one house that's adversely affected, that's not worth it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Did you have anything to add, Shelley?
Nope. I'm agree. I think it's good to wait.
Okay, perfect. So does staff have good direction? Jason can bring us some more information on costs and studies for our next meeting, and not moving forward with any specific project yet. Awesome. Kyle is nodding for all of you that that's not audible for. All right, so moving on. The next actually goes hand in hand with this quite well, and I think is a very important topic. To review and discuss the stormwater utility status and our next steps in getting this together. So, Kyle, if you wanted to.
Thank you. Yeah, this really is, it's a separate issue, but really closely related. And we've been talking about it for some time now, about a stormwater utility and about the importance of developing a sustainable funding option for the stormwater needs that are out there. And we're aware of the needs, but it's a matter of finding the funding necessary to complete the projects. If we're going to continue down this path, we are sort of nearing that time where we need to take some action. And there's really two things I think that we need. First off, with the publishing deadlines and getting things on the ballot, we would need to approach the referendum for this relatively soon and get that locked in so that it gets on likely the April ballot. And what that does is it really makes the project, or the utility, I should say, viable. If we don't do the referendum, we're penalized dollar for every dollar we collect off of our levy, and we would actually simply be shifting more of the money to the taxpayers and ratepayers versus helping with some of the state aid. So that's one of the important components. The second part is, staff has really gotten it to a point where we feel like we have a good handle on the basic structure, but I think we are nearing the point where we would need some professional help to help with the measurements to make sure they're valid, and that the resources we've been using to come up with those measurements are sort of checked off. Working on the final fee and credit policy, and also working on the public information component so that people have an opportunity to really learn about what it is and what it's supposed to accomplish. I think that Rupert Noki has experience with that, so we having the existing relationship, I would anticipate we would just approach Rupert Noki and ask for a task order that would detail what they would propose and how much it will cost. But all options are really on the table. But I think to do it in the right way is very important.
Perfect. Did everybody get that? Does anyone have a question or comment? So I would personally like to move forward with the process and start the referendum and start the study to make sure everything is lining up, all the measurements and costs, things of that nature. Is that the will of the council? See lots of nodding heads.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely something we need to move forward with and make sure that we have good information for people so that they understand what it means.
Alder Motif is in agreement as well.
Perfect. So it looks like we're all in agreement. So if we could get, I think, the referendum and things going as soon as possible so we can start getting it out to the public. Awesome. Thank you everyone for that. That was nice and easy. So next up on the agenda, the project update from the CHLPC, and we have Ruth here somewhere. Oh, there she is. I see her. Would you like to kick us off with that, Ruth? You're muted. Oh,
yes. Okay, I think I did that right. I'd love to. Okay, so it's okay for me to speak now?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Hermanson. I'm with HLPC, and I'll just quickly read this, and I'll take questions in a moment. We're very excited. After council blessings for the HLPC group to begin fundraising for the ADA compliant bathrooms and the Rest Haven, HLPC members met on site at the Rest Haven to review the scope of work needed. It was assessed that the project would require additional upgrades. Some examples are larger doorways leading into the bathrooms as well as into the venue, and to be ADA compliant. Possible and well-needed electrical upgrades, plumbing needs, etc. HLPC is here this evening to share their findings. and to receive approval from council members to move forward with these added adjustments. Upon approval at the next council meeting, HLPC would hire an architect to draft the plans, which would then be submitted to the State Historical Office for approval. A City of Columbus staff member would submit the SHPO form. At that time, HLPC would begin the next process with the City Council by providing the plans to them to move forward with the RFPs and approval for fundraising on behalf of HLPC. And with that, I think in your packet, you have a list of some of the items that are in need of upgrading, restoration, so forth. I'd like to also point out this would provide additional revenue to the city because it'll be able, to be rented out to more groups. And we've had great response in our calendar with people already donating for these upgrades. And if anybody does want to donate, I guess they could send their money to CHLPC at 105 North Dickinson, Columbus. And any questions?
Thank you so much, Ruth. Did anyone have any questions? For moving forward? Does everybody understand what the CHLPC is intending to do and how they're doing it? Everybody's good? See nodding heads for the most part.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, I would like to thank you for doing so much great work for our city, and we are all very excited about this project, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And in reflection on the pavilion, it's always nice to have the proof in the pudding, and we're excited to get going on the Rest Haven and hopefully celebrate its 100th birthday in 2023.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Then moving on, we have to review and discuss the parking and traffic near the school. Did you want to say anything about this, Sarah, or?
Me? Yes. So in the mornings in particular, I have noticed an issue when I take my son to school and make a roundabout through town to get back home. It is quite a little cluster in front of the middle school. It's the worst that it's ever been. I know the school is making every effort to let parents know where they're supposed to drop off kids. Unfortunately, I have had several instances where the parents drop off small children on the opposite side of the road, and they're not looking to see if cars come, and they're running out in front of traffic. We've got cars parking up and down School Street on both sides. I've noticed buses having a hard time getting around some of the traffic. And I know that in order to get through, because it's not a very narrow road, you have to pull almost all the way over, let a car pass through, and it happens pretty much all the way down to just before Charles Street on some days. I know that in our packet, it said that there have not been citations handed out yet. I think that is a potential option. The other potential option, I was wondering after reading our packet, is there a way to make that street a one-way direction during a certain period of time so that we can alleviate the traffic that's weaving out and the kids that are running out in front of cars?
Thank you, Sarah. And we do have a Chief Weiner here with us as well. Did you have something to add for us, Dennis?
Sure. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting some microphone error issues a minute ago. I noticed these issues very shortly before Alder Moda brought them forward. I had spent some time in the school area, specifically the middle school, and elementary school at the start of the school year. And everything she said is extremely accurate. People are parking wherever they want, dropping off wherever they want. No parking signs apparently don't apply to people anymore. And it's been very frustrating from our end. The first few days I was out there, I parked and approached vehicles and pointed out the signs and asked people to move on. And I got a great deal of resistance, some arguing. The sign says no parking. I'm not parking, I'm stopped. I heard all kinds of just crazy excuses, and I don't know what the solution is. It's in the morning, it's in the evening. We've seen it. It's gridlocked like it's never been. As far as the elementary school goes, the construction certainly doesn't help. Eliminating the drop-off lane that was in the parking lot now, it's been taken over by the construction. So then in addition to that, as far as the elementary school goes, the Sullivan Street and Main Street area are even more congested, not only because of vehicle traffic dropping off or picking up at school, but that's where all the construction workers are parking for the school addition, both sides of the street. I mean, even during the day when there's no drop off or pickup going on, sometimes traveling a block or a block and a half distance on Main Street is tight to get through with just one vehicle at a time. So I met with City Administrator Ellefson and the Director of Public Works, Jerry, and we walked out. We did try to make some immediate changes that could be done. Some extra curbing was painted on the north side of School Street. Jerry is going to work on changing some signs and painting over some things, but that is not the solution. I don't think it's really helped at all. I've had the school try to educate the parents in their blasts or peach jar or whatever that platform is that they use. And it's a gridlock. And I don't want to see something happen. You know, we always fear for the worst and try to plan for the worst, but this is just pandemonium in the morning and in the evening. And I don't know what the solution is. I talked to school staff about potentially having the buses dropping off on Richmond Street in the morning so that we could maybe designate Dickinson Boulevard between Richmond and school as a drop-off lane, kind of an easy in, easy out. That won't work for school staff because they don't have the people, the staff that would be necessary to monitor kids getting off the buses to make sure that they end up where they need to end up. So that wasn't an option. I thought that might relieve a little bit of it. But in the mornings and the afternoon, West School Street, Main Street, Sullivan Street, Dickinson and Fuller it is essentially gridlocked. And I guess we're looking for some ideas as well or some input that maybe we can, we're not going to fix it. I don't think there's a way to fix it because it's so landlocked, but I think that there's probably maybe some additional changes we can make. And I don't know if it's involving engineering, maybe involving Jerry from DPW a little more. That aspect of it is a little out of my purview. I was just asked to report my observations, and it's pretty bad on a regular basis.
Dennis, do you think it's time to start issuing parking citations?
I think it is. I mean, we certainly don't want to do that. You know, we hope, I mean, one of the vehicles I approached, he was parked so close to the no parking sign, he could have, someone in his passenger seat could have reached out and touched it, and he wanted to argue with me. Well, there's nowhere else to park. There's nowhere else to park. I'm only here a couple of minutes. What's the big deal? Well, the first day that I pulled up there were 6 cars illegally parked right in a row, pretty much all the way from Dickinson and School, all the way down to Spring Street on the south side, which is all posted no parking for those times. So we shoo them out. And then the other problem we've had a couple of days when I've shooed people out, then all they do is they go around a continuous square until their child comes out the side door, and then they stop in the road and their kids got to take their backpack off and they got to open the back door, and maybe they take a hooded sweatshirt off and throw it in, and then they get in the passenger seat and leave. Also stopping traffic for a minute or two. So I think it's going to come down to citations. Again, I think there's going to be some things maybe we can do as a city to improve it. just because of the geographical restrictions and the density, we're not going to solve it. But I do think it warrants some further effort and investigation.
My big concern is that some kid is going to get hit by a car. I worked at an elementary school up in Stevens Point where we had the same issue, and we ended up, as Alder Motive suggested, changing one of the two-way streets to a one-way. I don't know if that would work in our situation here, but I definitely think that parking citations should be handed out, because it sounds like these parents are just thumbing their nose. And
Absolutely.
there aren't any consequences. So I think it's time to start imposing some consequences on people who don't want to obey the rules.
Absolutely. I'm fine with that. You know, and in another secondary issue, I give the parents credit. The times that I've been out there, there's a fair amount of parents that park on Spring Street legally, and then they walk up the sidewalk, and then they stand on the north side of School Street. And then when their son or daughter come out of school, they see mom or dad, and they just arbitrarily run right across the street to mom or dad, not looking. You know, so those are some collateral issues too, with parents that are doing the right thing, but then we maybe have an education component that we need to address with the kids as well.
And honestly, so, I mean, they're city streets, and we want to do what we can and, you know, keep everyone safe. It sounds like they're not respecting a lot of the laws and things that we have currently there. I think we need to, like you mentioned, work more with the DPW, yourself, and also the school. I think the school needs to take responsibility to keep their students safe and to create a way that they can have safe pickup and drop off. I think they need to be an integral role in the solution and not just us. I mean, issuing citations we definitely should, but that doesn't fix anything. I think we really need to work with the school, and they need to come up with a lot of the solutions themselves. Like, I remember when I was in elementary school, high school kids were the staff. We had a safety patrol. They had little orange sashes and badges. Why can't Columbus high school students volunteer for that for something? I don't believe that them not having a staff is a reasonable excuse. It is their responsibility to keep our students safe and ensure a safe pickup and drop off. So I think we need to go back to the school and work with them, and they need to come up with a solution. Go ahead, Paul. Alder Piper.
Thank you. And I like your idea. Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Breaking up a lot.
I'm sorry, my internet's been bad. I'll try this real quick here. I like your idea of the
Let's go to Shelley.
Maybe we'll come back to Paul. Shelley, did you have something?
Yes, I did. So I like the idea of when you said the school should be responsible. And yes, when I was in school too, we also had a safety patrol. And so, you know, why can't we have people out there maybe kind of directing traffic? I'm not necessarily saying this is the responsibility of the police department, but what about teachers or other individuals that can help people get them going in the right direction?
Thank you, Shelley. Anybody else want to add something, or are you able, how's your internet doing, Paul?
I don't know, it's spotty. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you good now.
Okay, I'm gonna make a go of it here. I like your idea of the cadets. And however, with that comes also the risk of if parents aren't listening to the police officers, you might be putting some little kids that are playing cadet in harm's way. You know, like if they're not stopping for the police or listen to them, why would they listen to a little child? That's one concern. Second possible option, when I was in grade school, I know it was recess time, but I don't know why it couldn't be done at after school, before school. Close off a block or two of street with barricades. Do not let any pedestrian, any vehicle or traffic on it from whatever time to whatever time, and force the people to be elsewhere. So if kids are going to dart across the street, there's no risk of them getting hit whatsoever.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think this is an issue that the school really needs to address. And I don't think it's something that as a city we can properly address it, because I think it's something that's going to take a policy from the school, whether they figure out a way to have a late start, early start with part of the students to, have fewer kids arriving and leaving at the same time, whether they have safety patrol in a designated pickup drop-off area. I think there's a plethora of ways that they could address this, but until they address it, I don't think there's much that the city can do, unfortunately. Issuing citations and things isn't going to really fix the problem. I think the school needs to work with us to figure out a safe way to do it. Any more discussion or thoughts? So there's not really a fix that we have tonight, so there's no action that we can really take. I think Dennis is doing the best that he can. I think continuing to talk with the DPW and try to get the school to come to the table more and do something is all we can really do.
And that was exactly what I was just going to say, that what my plan is. I'll work with Jerry. We'll try and get a meeting set up with the school and see what we can do together and move something forward, maybe for some kind of action, because something's got to change. I don't like what I see out there either, but we've got to induce the change, and if it's through citations or through closing part of a street for an hour a day or here or there, something's got to give.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis, and thank you, Sarah, for bringing this forward. Unless there's anything else, anybody have any other comments? Okay, perfect. Then we will move on to item number 10, which Dennis is here for, to review and discuss the purchasing of the police squad with unused funds. Go ahead, Dennis.
Okay. With our current, the age of our fleet and where we're kind of in a rotation of our squads, we have a squad that was ready for retirement earlier this year. And I was planning to budget for one next year. I understand where the numbers are, that probably was not going to happen through the 2022 budget. And a way that we came up to potentially fund it would be with unused wages of the police department. Unfortunately, we are going to end up running probably for all of this year with 2 vacant positions. I don't like that. I would rather have the money, or I'd rather have the staff and not the money. But we ran a couple of processes. We've gotten no one hireable. We've gone right to the end and then found things in the background or other issues came up. We currently have another process that was just posted, but we wouldn't be looking at a start time until probably end of December, January at the earliest. I did some rough figuring with what we will have for excess wages. And this is only wages. This isn't even the benefits of those 2 positions. And for a few months this year, we ran actually 3 positions short. So I estimated there's going to be slightly over $100,000 in excess, again, of just wages from unpaid police department staff. And then I included in the packet a breakdown of the squad, the squad purchase, the outfitting of it. I estimated a little high on the outfitting of it because our vendor suggested I do that. They're having supply chain issues. Their costs are varying all the time. And also, if I was given the permission yet this month to order the squad, we wouldn't see it until next spring. So prices can change a lot for the vendor and for the installer. So that $13,120 outfitting the squad is a high estimate. They suggested 10 to 15% over the last squad I should write, and I wrote this at 18 just to make sure that we have it and that I don't have to come back to the council and ask for some nickels and dimes to something that came up or that we underestimated it. We also have a squad video camera included. The one that it's replacing is actually 9 years old. It's analog, and we're due for a new software update that won't run this camera. All of our other ones are HD quality. So it's replace the squad camera. And then I also just threw in a little bit of money, contingency money. Sometimes flipping a squad, we can reuse some of the equipment. And then some of the times our vendor will tell us, you know, this is that many years old, especially coming to electronics. There may be something small here or there that we don't expect. So I just want to be prepared for that. So the total cost of everything I have is $52,675. Again, the outfitting I think is high, and the contingency, I'm hoping it's not necessary, but I built it in again to avoid another visit back to the council asking for more money. And that would be the total cost. I have reached out to Countryside Ford here in town. They did not get the state bid. Ewald Ford out of Hartford did, as they have forever. Countryside is under different management since the last time we purchased, and they are willing to meet the state bid price. So the purchase would be here local from Countryside. So I'm looking for one way to fund this. And if we don't buy a squad, either through this method, and I know that next year with where the budget numbers are projected at, that's not going to be possible. In early 2023, we'll have 2 squads that are ready to go. And then we're back in the scenario that we've been in, hit or miss for the last 5 or 6 years, when we've skipped a year or 2 buying a squad. And then all of a sudden we're driving high mileage squads and nickel and diming us and bordering on being unsafe. And I want to avoid that.
Awesome, thank you, Dennis. And Kyle?
Just to kind of put a period on it, this is something that we do fairly often, is taking funds from within, a budget group. Just at this level, it requires council approval. So this is something that we do, although at this level it is a little bit different. So I just ask that this be approved so we can hopefully help take that strain off of next year's budget.
Also, I'll add that Countryside told me delivery could be as far as 4 to 6 months away. So we're looking at next spring anyway. So that's why I want to get locked in. Everybody knows about the infamous chip shortage and slowing down production and those type of things. And I know some departments that have ordered squad from another manufacturer, not Ford, they ordered it in 20, were promised it this year, and recently got letters saying you're not getting it. Hopefully you'll get it next year. So I don't want to be in that boat. I would like to get ahead of this. I did have Countryside check with someone to see roughly what the delivery time would be, and I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. And to clarify, this is something that we need to do the spending now, otherwise we cannot use these same funds next year. So this is something that we do have to kind of fast track to be able to use this money, otherwise next year it's not usable.
Correct. The issue there is, even though it's money that is in the budget this year, it's, using existing taxing authority. It's actually, somewhat a good practice to say, let's carry the money that we have saved this year and buy something next year. Unfortunately, the state rules for expenditure restraint don't recognize the money that's already in this year's budget being carried forward as sort of a reduction in spending next year. And so moving this over would put us past what the expenditure restraint number is. And if we did that, we would be looking at losing our expenditure restraint money, which is actually more than the cost of the squad. So it wouldn't make sense to try to do that.
Right. So does everyone on council understand that? And I assume everyone is for making sure our police department has the equipment they need. So
Yes.
perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennis. I think we have a consensus to move forward with the purchase of the new squad. And who knows?
Thank you all. Thank you all for your time.
Oh, thank you. And who knows, maybe having more new squads will help attract more police officers. I know having new equipment is definitely a draw for people, so.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And I will point out, as you all know, I'm in a command college class with 34 other executives from around the state. And the first day, the topic of hiring and retention and all that came up. And everybody but one person in the class raised their hand that their department has vacancies, are having problems attracting and retention. So it's a global problem. It's not unique to Columbus PD. And we're hoping to get a fix on it because our activity is the highest it's really been in a lot of hours.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all you do for us, Dennis.
Thank you.
Well, and actually, next up is our Dodge County Stray Animal Contract. Did you want to speak anything on that? It's a pretty straightforward.
I think, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You know, pretty much the same run of the mill contract. This year, we've been lucky. I believe we've only taken one animal to the Dodge County Humane Society, but I'm comfortable with keeping the number where it's at that we signed with the contract, because we've had years where we've gone one or two over. I mean, it's a hit or miss deal. If we pick up a dog, you know, if the owner discovers it quick enough, if it's really, really, really cold out, we don't want to keep it down at the park shed very long. So then we drive it to Juneau. So I'm comfortable with where it's at, and there are really no changes. So I'm good with it.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Dennis. Does anyone have any questions or, oh, it looks like Trina, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, not a question. I was just also hoping to go with the same plan as last year. So that would be putting a check mark by the lump sum of 1,300 for up to 5 animals. And then a check mark by the Humane Society must have approval before accepting any animal, because we definitely don't want someone trying to bring in a large litter, not realizing that it's costing the city over $1,000.
Right. And I would also point out that has happened. People from one of the townships have taken an animal there. Oh, where'd you find this dog? Columbus. Well, then they call us for permission, and it was one of the townships, and rural Columbus, but not our Columbus. And also, I would then point out too that for as long as we've been doing it with Dodge County, we have restricted it just to dogs, and that we make sure that that's reflected in the contract as well, which is the same as that it's always been.
Oh, yeah, I also wanted to note that it seems like, you know, most of the, you know, stray pets get relocated pretty quickly on, you know, Facebook. So it's just the couple that, you know, wind up going down, but there's usually a couple.
Right. And we also have the pet chip scanner now from Countryside
Oh, yeah.
Vet Clinic. So that gives us another advantage that 24/7, if they're chipped, we can find the owner and give them a call or bang on their door.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Dennis and Trina and, well, I myself would both be comfortable with option number 1, and still making sure that they have permission to take the dog from us, or whatever animal from us, before they take it in. Is the rest of council comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So then that should give staff good directions there. Next up is item number 12, is review and discuss the Dodge County 911 Joint Powers Agreement for 2022. So this is, again, a routine agreement. Did you have anything to add for us, Dennis?
Is that for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, did you have anything to add to the Joint Powers Agreement? So,
Oh, no, it's
do it every year.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing every year that we do with Dodge County. Last year, after we did it, I reached out to the Columbia County Sheriff and asked him why we wouldn't do one with them, and he had never heard of these. So I'm not really sure what they are. We're primarily in Columbia County, so that may make a difference, that Dodge being an adjoining county per se. But no, I'm fine with it. It's, I think, more just documentation for everybody than it is really any meat.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions or comments, concerns about the Joint Powers Agreement with Dodge County? All right, then I think we are good with moving forward and agreeing to that again this year. Let's see here. Number 13 is to review and discuss the redistricting information. Ed, could you hit us up on a bit more on that?
Yeah, what's included in the packet is the preliminary plan that we had help with
working with a GIS gentleman from Plum County. Really what happens is the county gets their information as a result of the census, or the census data from 2020, and they create their districts, and they pass their information to municipalities. So we reviewed what they submitted, and between Plymouth County and Dennis and I, Kyle and I, we came up with Paul's map that is included in the packet. It does change around some of the boundaries for the wards. There was some work in making sure that the wards were all in the correct range, which is required for municipalities of our population. So it took a little bit of work, but I think we have a pretty good map for Columbus in Columbia County. The Dodge County map didn't change. We don't have anybody living in that portion of, or that ward in Dodge County, so that didn't change. Right now, the map is to be reviewed. There will have to be a special meeting for the council to approve the ordinance and the map, because it must be submitted to the county clerk by the 18th of October. So that's about what we've submitted.
And we discussed that would be the 12th, correct?
Correct.
So we'll have a special meeting on the 12th to approve these. So I'm kind of skipping forward. What we really need to do tonight is push the two ordinances forward for that special meeting so that we can approve them. So if you'll see, item number 14 is ordinance 759-21. That's establishing the wards in Columbia County. And then number 15, 760-21 is establishing the singular ward in Dodge County that nobody lives in. That's more of something we have to do because it doesn't really affect anyone. With that in mind, it looks like Paul, do you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment. I was gonna just say, I was personally having a really hard time, and I know I have bad internet, so I apologize to you, but I was having a really hard time hearing Clerk Patricia Gable when she was speaking.
Did everyone else hear Pat, or was that a localized problem for Paul?
It was hard
No,
to hear her.
Yeah, it was hard to hear her. And
Yeah.
I think and I've got headphones on, so I feel like she was like in and out.
Oh, we apologize for that. Was there a specific question that anyone had on the wards? So basically, Pat, she had to work with the county in establishing these wards. They have to be specific. They have to have a certain amount of people in each ward, and it works with their supervisor. So that we're very limited in how the wards can be set up. And she did work really hard on making sure that everything worked out well for us, and believes that where the map is and how we have it now is the best way forward. But with that being said, if you have any strong feelings about them or alterations needed, now is the time so that we can bring this forward to the special meeting next week and approve them. Everybody good with the map, how it is now? Okay, perfect. Then, so staff has the direction to move the two ordinances forward to the special meeting on the 12th. And so we can approve those. Thank you, everyone. So next up is item number 16, the administrator's proposed budget for 2022.
All right, thank you. First off, before we kind of go through the highlights of the budget, were there any outstanding questions that anyone had? I can try to answer them now, or as always, one-on-one, or we also, I think we're planning to get together for a workshop to dig into any numbers or questions. But if there's any questions now, I can try to answer them. All right, seeing none right now, I'm gonna just kind of dive in. The I'm going to focus, I think, on the changes between the budget that I sent out today and the last one that you've seen. Much of the information in there is very similar. The general fund overall was down $32,000 from the first draft, primarily through reducing some capital expenditures and then the corresponding carryover funds. Most of the other funds were left largely unchanged. You know, one of the things I also had mentioned is that as we go through the budget, if there's any items that were requested, oh, Shelley, you have your hand up?
I actually got a text message from somebody in District 3 that says they're not getting audio for the live stream. Sorry, I know, and we're almost done here. I didn't see the text right away. The city stream for the cable website is without audio.
So I know that the cable stream went out. It should have been up for the last hour at least. Let me check quickly if.
Okay, if you could, I could, because I just clarified and they said yes, it's still out. So.
It is still
and
out.
I wish I would. I'm sorry. I wish I would have saw the text message sooner, but I didn't. I have a sick dog sitting next to me, and I've been kind of messing with her.
Okay. David's still working on it. So we do have the Zoom audio. We have the audio being played live at City Hall, outside City Hall as well. We verified that that is still working, and then the Zoom access. So I'm gonna keep going while they keep working on that. We did have it working for a little bit, but it may have gone back out. Let's see. One of the things I had mentioned is that as people make requests to be included in the budget, it should be going again now, Shelley, just in case.
Okay.
I got the thumbs up again. So one of the things I promised is that as people request things in the budget, if they don't make it in the budget or they don't make it in the budget kind of the way they asked for it, that I would bring it to council so you're aware of the discrepancies. There is one of those right now. It's relatively minor, but it's in the HLPC section. And that is on page 3, towards the top. It's the same amount. They requested an overall amount of $5,500. The only difference is that instead of the $3,000 you see for historic preservation new projects, they requested $1,500 for the new projects and a new budget line to fund the HLPC facade improvement grant in the amount of $1,500. I kept that lumped under the historic preservation new projects. I have some concerns about having two separate facade improvement grants, by the CDA having one, HLPC having another one. Additionally, the council may want to discuss it further. I know when it was brought forward, one of the elements of it was that this was going to be through donated funds only, not through tax dollars. So ultimately the money is there. How it's allocated is slightly different than what they asked. And then they also asked that the money that's being put for the HLPC maintenance of the water tower be considered to be assigned funds, so that each year that money would be assigned and would not sort of lapse with the budget year authority and would build up over time. I'm not opposed to that. Most likely any maintenance is going to be significant anyways, so I think building a fund balance in that regard makes sense. So I just wanted to point out the difference. Trina, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just wondering if there were two different, or trying to remember if there are two different grants for facade improvement, because one is for historical structures only and the other one's more general.
Yes, so the CDA has a facade improvement grant program that they've had for maybe the last year or so. And now the HLPC also has a facade improvement grant. I know that there was some discussion about if it applies to all historic properties or just downtown historic properties or exactly what.
I can clarify that. It does refer to any historic property in the city of Columbus. And I did talk to them about requesting that as a line item from the city, and that it was the intention that it would be donated funds. So they understand that moving forward with that. But to kind of add on to the assigned funds for the water tower maintenance, I think that's important. That's what the CHLPC always thought it was. So they thought that they had the funds sitting in a thing in an account, and then when it came time to do the maintenance, they could do the maintenance all at once, because $1,500 doesn't really do any maintenance on that structure. You have to save up for a few years and then do the maintenance. So that I think is important, to put that in assigned funds so that it can accrue and then utilize it to do the maintenance, since that was more of the original intent. It just didn't happen that way.
All right. So that one, like all lines in the budget, they're my proposal and can be changed by council at the next meeting, or even all the way up through adopting the budget. So just wanted to be upfront with that. The only other change I think I really made from what was requested happens to be in Fund 255, which is the municipal court. And we made a similar change last year. As they're anticipating their wages, the judge's position has a salary that's assigned at the point they're elected. And similar to city council, when you start your term, your salary is set. The difference being the city council could choose to change the salary during the term. Historically, we have not. So he included that in the budget request to increase the judge's salary budget by 2%. I left it at $8,500, which is the amount that was set at the time of election. If there's a desire to change that, we can. Just historically, we've not. So any of the changes I made were basically to correct payroll numbers and kind of match past practice. So those are the two things I did want to point out that were different than what was requested. But getting back to the general fund, I mentioned that it's down, but most other funds were left largely unchanged. One of the funds that has sort of the biggest change for next year, I think, is the capital improvements, capital projects fund. And so if you had a chance to read your email or look at the packet I printed, I went in and sort of detailed, because there's more than $1 million worth of expenditures going through that fund next year. The big capital projects would be the CDBG close project. We referenced that a little bit earlier tonight, dredging the Second Ward Creek from Mill Pond up to Farnham Street, and then also replacing a failing corrugated metal pipe from Fuller Street to a portion of Washington Park. These were funds that had to be used in a sort of specific way that met CDBG criteria. And so we were limited in the areas of the community that we could use them. So this area did fit. The CDBG grant funding is $423,484. And then CDBG grant funding. Then the city's portion is estimated to be about $150,000, which that would include some contingency and would be included in a 2022 debt issuance that we'll need to obtain to pay for this project and some other projects. The other project is the State Highway 89 reconstruction project. That project, non-utility costs it's about $455,000. And that's reconstructing Highway 89 from Park Avenue to just south of Avalon Road. It's going to be utility infrastructure has to be addressed, some stormwater infrastructure, streets, parking lanes, curb gutter, tree removals. So it's going to be a substantial project next year. That also has to be funded by the bond and note proceeds during 2022. And then there's also a smaller contribution of some unused bond proceeds that were remaining after a previous debt issuance. And those have to be used on road improvements, so this is a opportune time to use them. Then the other big items are are the capital vehicles and equipment. And included currently is replacing the 1994 mini dump truck that the DPW has that they use nearly every day. That, because of the box and the pickup and the hydraulics, is $59,000. And then also, we did already agree to purchase a used bucket truck from Columbus Water and Light. We have the first of 3 payments annually starting in 2022. That's $14,000 annually. And then also there's a 72-inch mower that has kind of reached the end of its useful life and is becoming more of a service liability than a asset performing its tasks. So the capital vehicles and equipment are going to be funded with a combination of some designated funds from previous DPW equipment sale, as well as the carryover of some unspent 2021 funds, and also equipment replacement funds from when we sell assets as they age out, and then the proceeds remaining from the previous debt issuances will also be used. So that's a significant jump in the budget. There's going to be a lot of projects going on in 2022. And just know that we'll have a borrowing that will need to come up in 2022 to fund these things. Many of them, the CDBG, we were on a strict timeline to get a project approved and how quickly it needs to be done. And the State Highway 89 project also is really on the state's time frame. And we sort of need to go along with it and fund it at the time they do the project. The other things, the wastewater fund, just knowing that there's some big projects in there. There's $750,000 for the sanitary sewer work. That's going to be part of the Highway 89 project. They've also asked to budget for a sludge study as they look forward to, what different technology they might implement there. They've had sludge storage concerns over a significant amount of time, and they're really looking for a different process that might eliminate some of the storage as well as the land spreading concerns. So the first part of that is a study to evaluate all the options. They also need the engineering to start for both the Meister and Waterloo lift stations. So the plan would be to do the engineering on those in 2022 with the larger work for actually doing the upgrades falling in 2023. So those are both sort of well due for their upgrades, and they want to get going on the engineering. Once that's done, we can potentially stagger the actual improvements, maybe both in 2023, or maybe we can do one a year for the following 2 years. That's a little bit yet to be seen. Also, just today, actually in the last day or two, we were looking at the chemical costs, and with the change in phosphorus limits, probably some supply chain issues, chemical costs more now. That doubled our cost year over year for what the chemicals are. And then we do have a remaining project for the diffuser, the aeration diffuser project. That was scheduled for this year. We've not been able to get it completed. That will be moved forward to next year. And we did have to carry over some money from unspent money this year. There was also a clarifier decking project that was scheduled this year, and we were not able to get it done this year. It's not in this next budget, but will have to be in a future year. Just the point being that we did have to carry over money because the rates currently would not support all the improvements that are needed. We are waiting for the outcome of the rate study, but that's going to be something that's important, is increasing the rates to support the actual operating costs of the sewer utility. I think when I look at the budget overall, and I know we're going to get together and kind of dig into the fine details, but I look at, the priorities that come along with the money. And as I look at this budget, I think it's a small levy increase budget, a small growth that we're dealing with. But the priorities, I think, as you look at where the money is going, is our emergency services are all up. We've increased our commitment to the police, fire, and the ambulance contract. Road maintenance is up for the second straight year, and it's actually about 20% more than what we budgeted just 2 years ago. Tree trimming also increased as we continue to look at the ash trees and trying to make progress there. And we have more trees to remove than the funds to do them. We made some progress there. I think also the commitment to the employees is coming through in that there's a solid general wage adjustment being offered to the employees, as well as a few targeted salary adjustments to positions that we've been evaluating. And then as we just discussed in capital projects and equipment, there's an investment in some significant projects and equipment. Some have been kind of developing over years, but some of our equipment, when you have a truck from 1994, that's served a useful life for sure. So my hope is that we have a solid budget to start the work with, and we can sort of cut or add what the council wants from here based on what they see as the priorities that need to be addressed. About the meeting, I think I haven't heard any more feedback. So the last I heard was October 26th was maybe the time and date that worked for most people, the time being 4 o'clock on October 26th. Do we want to set that as a workshop time and date, or I guess that would be something I'd be interested to know what the council would like to do.
What is everyone's thoughts? October 26th at 4 p.m.
Oh, that day works for me.
It works for me as well.
Trina stepped away. Paul won't be here. How does October 26th at 4 work for you, Trina?
Oh, I was just looking at a calendar. Did someone say at 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I would definitely be late for that one.
What's the earliest you're capable of attending?
It's difficult getting there before 5.
Okay. Is that, is the budget something that you feel pretty comfortable with, that you'd be comfortable being late, or would you prefer us to push it back till 5 for you?
I would really appreciate 5. I don't know how those feel.
I'm okay with 5 if everyone else.
Yeah, I'm fine with 5.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So it sounds like October 26th at 5 p.m.
Yep, and then I guess just to kind of wrap it up for this item, take time to again review it. Let me know if there's any questions. We'll be looking at this again on the 19th, which is before the time we're going to dig into really figure out any of the questions that might be hanging out there. But if there's any major issues that are out there that we should discuss before we agree to publish a budget, make sure you reach out to me so that on the 19th, if there are major points or elements we want to maybe bring out as separate questions so that we get the final budget for publishing correct, that we have them. I do want to point out though that the budget that we publish is not the final step in the process. So even if we don't make a change on the 19th, the budget isn't final till it's actually voted on, and we can change it all the way up to that last moment. The goal would be on the 19th to publish something that fairly accurately represents where we think the budget will be adopted. So I don't want anyone to feel like we need to decide on the final point in 2 weeks, but we do want to be close on that element.
Well, thanks too much, Kyle. Does anybody else have any thoughts or concerns for now? Okay, awesome. Well then, next up on the agenda is to convene to close session for 19.851G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written service concerning strategies to be adopted by the body with respect to litigate in which it is or is likely to become involved. So I will take a motion to convene to close session for reasons read.
Alder Pipe will make a motion to convene to close session per 19.85 sub 1 sub G to confer with legal counsel.
Alder Motif will second.
All right, we have a motion from Alder Piperon and a second from Alder Motive. All those in favor, or take a roll call, please. Where's that?
Arnold,
Yes.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Piperone,
Aye.
Reed,
Hi.
Albright,
Aye.
motion carries.
Perfect. We will be convening to a closed session. There will not be any more action that's taken tonight, so we won't be coming back to the air tonight. Thank you, everyone who watched us via Zoom, and I'll see you next week.